Happy day after Thanksgiving Day. Now, as usual, it's a mistake for me to have free time before I start my reading. I was just kind of putzing around Story and Song and literally came up to one of these kiosks here and happened to look down and oh my goodness, what I saw. The perfect gift. These are really quite fascinating. They're poems with beautiful print and with artwork and actually signed by the poet. Now I'm going to read to you what's on the back. This particular one, which I'm going to actually read for you before we start on a program, is How to Read a Book. Was hand set in Emerson and Garamond typefaces and then printed on an antique Chandler and Price press. 200 copies were printed on Somerset book paper and signed by the author. Michael Moran is a poet who lives on a small farm in Franklin County, Kentucky. Larkspur Press published his collection, The Fallen World, in 2008. His poetry has also been featured on NPR's The Writer's Almanac. Carolyn Whitesell is a book artist, illustrator, and poet living in North College Hill, Ohio. And Deborah Kessler is a letterpress printer and proprietor of October Press Letterpress. She lives in Lexington, Kentucky. And get this, Fernandina Beach, Florida. So you can get a poem with a picture printed on wonderful paper and it just makes the perfect gift. So since this is our book prose reading, I'm going to read to you how to read a book. Sniff the spine, dust the dust jacket, tongue the title slowly, usually a soft chant is best. Gregorian if you like, Centaurian if you must. Inquire within. Oh, no introductions, please. Read the first paragraph at least 3 times, then lie down a while or finally do those dishes. Open at random. Now, I like page 89 and find 2 words you cannot live without. Hold one in each cheek as you chew your arugula and savor your squash. For the first week, let it sleep under your pillow so you dream its denouement differently each night. Allow it to roam your study, nestle in the corners of your kitchen garden, bask in the moonlight on your bedside table, preen in your bathroom mirror. What page is that sticking to the bottom of your left tennis shoe? Which character scarfs you against the autumn gusts? Curled in your bed, your night light dimly aching, whirl through the words of that final chapter until in your dizziness you stumble to the end, gasping for breath, heart splintered, soul knit tight. Michael Moran. And you can, if you look closely, even see his original signature. There are multitudes of these at Story and Song, different poems, different pictures, all equally splendid. But I just found those when I was stumbling around getting ready for today. Now, speaking of today, I'm going to kind of round up something. You know, you may remember months and months ago, I did a collection from The Moth, 50 True Stories. Now, this is a handy paperback book, chock-a-block full of wondrous things. And then there was, and I stress the word was, another book called The Moth Presents All These Wonders. Now, the only reason I don't have it out here to show you is somebody bought it. Now, if you want it, Donna can arrange for you to have it. You just have to ask her for it. But the third of this group of fantastic books is The Moth Presents Occasional Magic, True Stories About Defying the Impossible. It's forward by Meg Wurlitzer, and it is edited by Catherine Burns. And I'm just going to read you a few inserts from here. And before I start, let's start, not at page 89, like that poem said, but we'll start at the very beginning, the introduction. The title of this collection, Occasional Magic, comes from a story told by Vietnam veteran Larry Kerr. It's about his intense love for a young woman named Omi, who he describes as a smart, meltingly lovely, and strong, with a fierce belief in the possibility of occasional magic. Occasional magic refers to those moments of beauty, wonder, and clarity, often stumbled upon, where we suddenly see a piece of truth about life. As Moth directors, we spend our days helping people to shape their stories. We help people identify the most important moments of their lives. As we sometimes put it, the moments when you become you. So the audience will understand why they mattered so much. All the stories in the following pages were first told in front of live audiences. They showcase the great range of humanity, from a 15-year-old kid saving a life in Chicago to a Russian facing down the KGB, and cover all 7 continents. To select them, we read transcripts of hundreds of stories before narrowing it down to these 47, which were chosen for their ability to convey emotion, humor, and vulnerability in print. They were edited with an emphasis on preserving the live voices as much as possible. So you'll find tense changes, sentence fragments, and even the occasional grammatical mistake. The authenticity of these stories is what can make a show in a 3,000-seat theater feel like being in someone's living room. The feeling that the person on stage isn't presenting a story, but sharing one. The same way we might with a friend over dinner. The warmth and investment of the audience is as much a part of the show as the stories themselves. We will forever try to live up to the way British writer and Moth storyteller Lem Sissay described the feel of Moth evenings. Imagine the Moth to be an encampment in the desert. Oh, take a seat. Oh, someone will make space for you. It's dusk in the land of story. What's happening? Who knows? I mean, someone's going to stand up and and speak. Something about their life, something that means something to them, something that may mean something to you. The sun dips and fires. Rising stars spill across the sky like shoals of silver fish. You see, there are as many small fires as there are stars. This is not an encampment. It is the world. The air is perfect body temperature. Oh, it is. The moth is by the people, for the people, and that's you. For more than 2 decades, tens of thousands of people have shared stories on Moth stages around the world, and millions more have shown up with open hearts to listen. If the warm response of Moth audiences assures us of anything, it's that empathy is alive and well in the world. And for that, we have a reason to be hopeful. Catherine Burns, artistic Moth director, wrote those words. And now, for some Moth stories. Peter Aguero writes, Me and Mama versus Christmas. I just finished my first semester of college, and I have a big bag of laundry. I come through the door of the house, and things aren't looking too good for me and my mom. First thing I notice is that the piano is gone. And she had that ever since she was a little girl and took piano lessons. We always put the nativity on top of it around Christmas time. I took piano lessons too for 2 weeks. But still, I took piano lessons on that piano. And now it's gone. I go through the living room, and the only thing that's left is one couch with broken springs sticking out of it. There are 2 televisions, one on top of the other. One has a picture that works, and one has sound that works. One of the TVs is hooked up to cable, the other one gets the antenna, so sound doesn't quite jibe, you know? Over in the corner are the impressions from my dad's lazy boy that has been gone for about 4 years now. I walk into the dining room and I see that it's empty. There used to be this big, beautiful dining room set with carved chairs and a glass break front and a buffet table. It's gone. In the kitchen, there's a small table and 2 chairs. There used to be 4, but I broke one of them, and the other chair I also broke, and so there's only 2 left. And I go upstairs to the bedrooms, and in my mom's room, there's nothing left but her mattress on the floor. There's nothing quite so damning as a bedroom without furniture, because you see all the dings and scratches on the wallpaper, all the mistakes that can usually be covered up. My sister's room is exactly the way it looked when she moved out 2 years ago to live with my dad. Pepto-Bismol pink walls. Oh, and a canopy bed. And this big toy box in the shape of a rubber strawberry, as if she was going to move back in and be the little girl that she was before she moved out. My room looks exactly the way it was when I left for college. There's posters all over the walls, and it's ridiculous. It's me. I start to do my laundry. My mom comes home from work and she immediately takes over, doesn't let me do it myself. I end up helping her with it, and she's happy to see me. She's happy that I'm home. When we're done with that, we have dinner. My mom makes tomato casserole. It is one of my favorite things. It was canned tomatoes with cubes of Wonder Bread and American cheese baked in the oven. Now, if you put enough shaky cheese on it, it's delicious, you know? So, we're sitting there in the two kitchen chairs, and I'm telling her all about my first semester of college and how I finished up. Oh, she is so proud of me. And she's telling me about work. My mom's a nurse, and she's been taking all the shifts she can. But she'd warned me that she was starting to have to sell stuff in the house to be able to catch up on the bills because the house is too big for the two of us. And now that I'm away at school, it's just her. So she was doing everything she could, and she warned me, but it was still shocking, you know? She had just taken a second job, part-time seasonal job at the mall behind the perfume counter. And my mom didn't like people telling her what to do, so I knew that wasn't going to last very long. While we're sitting there at dinner, she says, Pete, we're not going to have a lot of money this year for Christmas. So I don't think we're going to be able to give each other presents. Oh, I said, oh, that's okay, Mom. And I'm being completely honest. I'm just happy to be home with her. I don't need anything, and that's the truth. We sit there, eating quietly for a minute, and then she says, You know what'd be funny? Now, what if we cut out pictures of things from magazines that we would give each other if we could? And we laughed about it. And then we cried about it because it's sad. It's a really sad thing. But then we laughed again because no matter how hard things are, you just have to laugh, you know? Next day, I decided I wanted to make the house look as Christmassy as possible. I went up to the attic, got down the boxes with the lights, and hung the lights in the bushes out front and around the gutters, and I wanted to get a Christmas tree. I grew up in a little town in New Jersey called Delanco. It was a small town, 2,500 people. It was mostly farms. At that time, there wasn't Walmart or big stores or anything. So I went over to the local Christmas tree farm to get a tree. Well, I figured they'd give me a deal because, hey, I used to date their daughter. But it turns out they didn't give me a deal because I used to date their daughter. And the Christmas tree was like $40. Man, I couldn't afford that. So I went back home, got an old saw out of the garage, and I cut out a tree from the side yard and brought it in. It wasn't even a pine tree. It was like a stunted maple tree. I put it in the tree holder. It had 5 branches. I put 20 ornaments on each branch and just kind of put the lights on it and called it a day. My mom came home from work and she just laughed about it. When I visited my friends who were also home from college, I would steal their mom's fancy catalogs and bring them home and cut out pictures of stuff. And my mom always wanted a green Jaguar convertible. I found a picture of one of those. I cut out pictures of gold and diamonds and jewelry and an island. All these things that I would love to be able to give my mom for Christmas. I kept collecting them and folding them up and tying them up with ribbons and hiding them in my room. And I was waiting to put them under the tree. And like I said, I knew it was a sad thing, but it was also something that would bring us together. I knew it was something that we would be able to hold on to together. There's one night toward the end of December, close to Christmas, when we're sitting there in the living room watching the TVs and the Charlie Brown Christmas special is on. We're sitting there right next to each other on the couch. But we are worlds apart. My mom is exhausted. I've been trying to get her to sell the house for years because I knew it was just too big for her to be in by herself. If I'm being honest, it was too big when all 4 of us were living there. I don't know why they got it in the first place. 4 years before that, my parents, who had been separated on and off the whole time that they were married, were giving it one last try. Plan was they were going to sell the house, take the money, and we were going to move to Georgia from Jersey and have a fresh start. Now that was the big plan. It went along okay for a couple of weeks, and then they started to fight and things went back to normal. So that fresh start never really happened, and it culminated with the 4 of us sitting in the 3rd pew at St. Casimir's Church in Riverside, New Jersey, for Christmas night Mass. Right before the priest started the Mass in the packed church, my dad stood up and he walked out of the church. The only sound you could hear in the silent church was the hydraulic door just go whoosh. The 3 of us stood up and we went past the priest and everyone we knew. And we walked the 2 blocks to where the car was parked. My dad was nowhere to be found, but he left the key on the car, sitting on the hood. And that year, my parents were done. That was it. I got what I wanted for Christmas that year. My parents never got back together. But here we are now, today, 2 of us sitting on this couch and trying to watch this thing and be happy. Something. And she is a million miles away. Look, it's all killing her. Trying to pay the bills, trying to keep it together. Look, she did everything she could to try to keep the house so there would be some semblance of normalcy. I knew that she took a big hit on her pride. And she is a very prideful woman. And I knew that when everyone she knew in her life saw our family disintegrate at that midnight mass, it ripped her apart. My mom was my best friend. It was the two of us, man. She was my partner. She was like my road dog, you know? It was like me and her against the world. And being there with her and having her be a million miles away was killing me. Just like I knew this house was killing her. Well, it got to be Christmas Eve, and my buddy Brian came over and picked me up, and we went to a different church for midnight mass. When you're under 21, you can't go to a bar, so you go to see your friends at mass. We split a jug of wine in the parking lot, and we went in. Mass was awesome. And afterwards, I came home. Next morning, I wake up, and it's Christmas morning. So I go and gather up all the little pictures of gifts that I want to give my mother, all wrapped up and tied in ribbons, and I put them under the tree. I hear my mom upstairs, and she comes down. Her hair's in corkscrews. She's got this big flannel house coat on, and her big red plastic Sally, Jeffy, Raphael morning glasses with a broken ear thing kind of taped up. I say, "Merry Christmas, Mom." She goes, "Oh, honey, oh, hold on." She goes upstairs, and she's upstairs for a minute. Then she comes back down, and she has a few pictures of gifts. I give her hers first. Oh, there's the Jaguar, and the jewelry, and the island, and a picture of a baby grand piano. Picture of a new dining room set, and a new mahogany bedroom set. And all these things I wish I could replace for her. And she's smiling and laughing the whole time. When it's all done, she gives me mine, and there's 3 of them. There's a picture of a bag of Reese's peanut butter cups. There's a picture of a pair of Homer Simpson slippers. And there's a picture of a karaoke machine. And they were all from the same Rite Aid catalog that was up in her bathroom, because she was working so hard. She had completely forgotten about this thing that I thought was going to bring us together. So we are stuck in this O. Henry story that never would have been written. And I thank her so much for all the gifts. We go to the kitchen. My mom makes the best pancakes in the world. You might think your mom does, but I'm so sorry. You're wrong. But this morning, she burns them a little bit. So I'm sitting in the kitchen eating these pancakes, cutting kind of around the burnt pieces. And I'm looking out through our backyard at everybody else's house and all the lights in their houses. Look, orange and colorful and friendly. with all those people inside. And our house just feels empty and stark and white under the fluorescent light as we eat these pancakes in silence. Oh, together, just the two of us. A couple of months later, she finally did send me my present. I was back in college. Man, I had taken out all the tuition in loans because we couldn't afford it otherwise. But it was important to her that I go. I just finished a day of classes and I was heading to the dining hall. I stopped over, checked my mail. Do you remember mail? Well, I opened up the mailbox and there was an envelope with my mother's postmark on it. Well, I take it up to the dining hall. I fill up my tray with too much food because that's what you always do. I go over to a table and I sit down. Before I start eating, I open up that envelope. Inside, there's no note. There's just one photograph. It's of her standing in front of the house with a for sale sign. The house sold pretty quickly. She offloaded it and she took a little bit of a hit financially. And she took an even bigger hit on her pride. Oh, she moved into a much smaller place that she could afford. And it hurt her. I know it hurt her. But the most important thing to me was right then, when looking at that picture, I got my girl back. And a change of pace, a sip of Americano coffee from Story and Song. David Litt asks a question. Have you met him yet? In 2008, I was one of those young people who became obsessed with Barack Obama. I was a senior in college at the time, and after I graduated, I went out to Ohio and worked on his campaign. Now, after the campaign, I moved to Washington because, well, hope and change. And 2 years later, the White House hired me. They hired me to write speeches. People would hear about my new job and they would say, wow, you must be really good. And I'd say, I don't know. I hope so. They thought I was pretending to be humble, but I was entirely sincere. It's not that I thought I had no talent whatever. It's just that I knew there were more than 300 million people in America. And some of them are babies, but a lot of them are adults. It just seemed unlikely that I was the best we, the people, could do. So every day I walked through the gates of the White House, absolutely sure somebody had made a mistake. While this was going on, my friends and family were equally sure they now had direct access to the President of the United States. Like I'm sitting in my White House office and I get a text from my sister that says, "How come the Department of Homeland Security doesn't have a mailing address?" Now, even in the best of circumstances, This is a disturbing question to get from a family member. But if you work in the White House, you want to know the answer to this kind of stuff, and I have no idea. It was like that with everything. Suddenly, everyone has a law that only I can get through Congress. Everybody has something wrong with Obamacare that I need to know about. Mostly, everybody has the same question. They all want to know. Have you met him yet? Have you met Obama yet? I'd say no, I haven't met him yet. And I get this look, and it's a look I soon learned means you may be 24 years old and working at the White House, but you're still a disappointment to your family and friends. And I'd have to say, hey, I totally get it. Everybody thinks that the White House is either like the TV show, you know, The West Wing, where everyone's hanging out with the president, or it's like the TV show Scandal, where everybody's having sex with the president. But if you're looking for a Hollywood analogy, the White House is like the Death Star. There are thousands of people running around the hallways. They're all trying to make sure their little bit of the operation works well. And just because Darth Vader is the public face of the organization doesn't mean that every stormtrooper gets personal one-on-one time. So I try to explain this whole Death Star thing, and it doesn't work. I still get that disappointed look. Frankly, nobody's more disappointed than I am. I mean, nobody wants to meet the president more than I do. Now, there's two reasons for this. The first is kind of corny, but it's true. I moved to Washington because I thought, I don't know what it is, but there must be something I can do for my country. I want to be the kind of person who makes the President of the United States just a little bit better at his job when I'm in the room. Second reason is, I would really like Barack Obama and I to become best friends. Now, I'm not saying every White House staffer imagined they would become buddies with the president. I'm just saying, none of us ruled it out. You would hear these stories, you know, somebody got a fist bump in the hallway, or somebody else got invited to play cards on Air Force One. The moral was always the same. Any moment could be the moment that changes your life forever. Now, my first chance at a life-changing moment came in November 2011, when I was asked to write the Thanksgiving video address. I will say up front that if the State of the Union is all the way on one end of the presidential speech writing spectrum, Happy Thanksgiving, America is kind of on the other. But as far as I was concerned, this was the most important set of words Barack Obama would ever say. I threw myself into this. I wrote and I rewrote and I made edits, and I finally made edits to the edits. Finally, the day of taping came, and I went to the diplomatic reception room, which is one of the most beautiful rooms in the White House. It has this wraparound mural of 19th century American life. And the advice I always got about working in the White House was, oh, now you have to act like you've been there before. So I'm standing there, trying to act like I've been there before, and the woman behind the camera takes one look at me and goes, "This is your first time, isn't it?" I crack immediately. I'm like, "Yes, I have never been here before. Please help." She says, "Oh, don't worry." Her name is Hope Hall. She films the president all the time. She's going to take care of everything. All I have to do is wait. So I wait. I wait. Well, and I wait. And I wait. And I wait. And just when I'm wondering, is this whole thing a nightmare? Is this a practical joke? Somebody gets an email on their BlackBerry and they say, "Okay, he's moving." There's a kind of crackling in the air. And a minute later, President Obama enters the room. He's standing up, so we all stand up. He sits down, so we all sit down. He looks at the camera to start taping when Hope stops him and says, "Actually, Mr. President, this is David. This is the first video he's ever written for you." President Obama looks at me and he says, "Oh, how's it going, David?" I had exactly one thought in that moment. I did not realize we were going to have to answer questions. And I have no idea what I said after that. I actually blacked out. Like, I went home for Thanksgiving and my family was like, "So, have you met him yet?" And I was like, "Yeah." And they were like, "Oh, what did he say?" And I was like, "How's it going?" And they were like, "Well, what did you say?" And I was like, "I don't know." I blacked out. And I got that disappointed look. Again, nobody's more disappointed than me, because if I'm going to be the kind of person who makes the president a little bit better at his job when I'm in the room, I'm going to have to deal with questions more complicated than, "How's it going?" And at that moment, there is no indication I can do it. But I make a promise to myself. I say, if I ever get another shot at a life-changing moment, I am not going to let myself down. And I didn't know if it would ever happen for me, but in fact, it happened just a couple of weeks later. I was sitting in my office and I got a phone call from the chief speechwriter at the time. His name was John Favreau. He said, "Betty White is turning 90 years old and NBC is doing this special where famous different people wish her a happy birthday in these 30-second skits. Hey, you're pretty funny, and no one else wants to do it. Give it a shot?" I said, "Absolutely." And again, I understand. The State of the Union is over here. And happy birthday, Betty White, is over there. But this was my Gettysburg Address. We had 1 week to make it perfect. John and I started by coming up with a joke for the president. We were going to have him fill out a birthday card, and then while he was filling it out, you would hear his voice in a voiceover say, "Dear Betty, you're so young and full of life. I can't believe you're turning 90. In fact, I don't believe it. Please send a copy of your long-form birth certificate to 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, Washington, D.C." Now, we feel good about the joke, but we still need a birthday card. So I go to the CVS near the White House and I grab a card. But then right when I'm about to leave, I have a stroke of genius. We don't actually need one birthday card. We need two identical birthday cards because we have two different camera angles. And in the second camera angle, we don't want anyone to see that the president's already filled his card out. I'm thinking, yes, this is how White House staffers are supposed to feel. I have saved the day. So I get identical cards. I ring it up. I go back to my office. Oh, I'm feeling really good. Last thing we need is some way to end the video. Now, what I come up with is we're going to have the president put on headphones. Then he'll listen to the theme song from Golden Girls, which is Betty White's most popular show. And I find the perfect set of headphones. They go over the ear. They'll look great on camera. I listen to the Golden Girls theme song on repeat, just to get in the mood. Finally, on Friday, I get the call. Come on over. Here's what they don't tell you about having a meeting in the Oval Office. When you have a meeting in the Oval Office, you do not just walk into the Oval Office. You wait in this windowless chamber, which is a little like a doctor's office, except instead of last year's Marie Claire magazine, they have priceless pieces of American art. And instead of a receptionist, you have a man with a gun who, in a worst case scenario, is legally obligated to kill you. Now, it turns out this little room is the perfect place to second guess every life choice you have already made. So I'm sitting there with Hope Hall, the videographer, and I'm just thinking, do I remember how to explain the joke? Oh, do I have both of the birthday cards? I checked my pants pocket. Oh, are the headphones still there? Are the headphones still there? Ooh, are the headphones still there? I'm on the verge of a nervous breakdown when finally one of the president's aides pokes her head out and says, "Okay, he's ready for you. Go on in." To my credit, the first time I enter the Oval Office, I do not black out. Oh, I can remember very clearly. Right in front of me, I can see a painting of the Statue of Liberty that was done by Norman Rockwell and that someone has told me is valued at $12 million. And behind me, out of the corner of my eye, I could see the Emancipation Proclamation. Oh, no. Not a photocopy of the Emancipation Proclamation. The Emancipation Proclamation. I can feel the message that this document is sending me through the room. And that message is, I'm here because I freed the slaves. What are you doing here? I look across the desk at the president and I realize he may also be wondering what I'm doing here. Oh, but I feel great. I spent an entire week just practicing how to explain this one joke to the president. So I step up. I open my mouth. And what comes out is like I'm trying to ask for directions, but in Spanish, like the nouns and the verbs are there, but there's nothing in between. I just say, Betty White, video, and me special birthday card, está bien? President Obama gives me kind of a confused look. Hope Hall, the videographer, jumps in and explains everything and rescues me. But I'm a little concerned because I am here to show the president how professional I am, and in my professional opinion, we are not off to a great start. Still, I'm not that worried because I have that second birthday card in my pocket. So I'm going to get a chance to show President Obama how I saved the day. As soon as Hope is finished filming, even I am surprised by how confident I sound when I walk up to the desk. I put my hand down and I say, Mr. President, I'm going to need to take that birthday card and replace it with this identical birthday card because we don't want anyone to know you've already written your birthday greeting. President Obama looks up at me and he says, we're filming this from all the way across the room. And I say, yes, that's right. He says, so no one's going to see inside of the card. Well, yes, you know, that's right. So I can just pretend to write in the card? We don't actually need another one. Yes, that's right. And I put the card back in my pocket. Strike two. But I'm not giving up yet, because I made that promise to myself. Besides, I really do feel good about the ending, with the headphones. So the moment Hope is done filming her second camera angle, I walk back to the president and I reach into my pocket and I pull out what looks like a hairball made out of wires. I don't know really what happened. I guess somewhere in that waiting room, I have just worried this thing, into a hopeless tangle. And now I don't know what to do. So I just hand the entire thing to the President of the United States. Now, if you work in the White House, you will hear the phrase, there is no commodity on earth more valuable than a president's time, which I always thought was a cliche until I watched Barack Obama untangle headphones for 30 seconds while looking directly at me. He untangles and untangles, and when he finishes, he sighs, looks at Hope, and just goes, shoddy advance work. He does it in this way that lets you know that A, he's only joking, and also that B is not even a tiny bit joking. And I'll tell you, my heart, just sinks. This was my third chance to make a second first impression on the president, and I let myself down. All I wanted to do was get out of the Oval Office. And President Obama says something like, well, would it be funnier if I bob my head in time to the music, and I say, oh, yeah, yeah. You know, that would be funnier. But my heart isn't in it. I know I don't belong there. And the president looks into the camera to tape this final scene. And then suddenly he stops and he says, well, wait a second. If I'm going to bob my head in time to the music, I need to know how the music goes. Does anyone here know the Golden Girls theme song? President Obama looks at Hope. Hope doesn't say anything. So I look at Hope. And Hope doesn't say anything. So President Obama looks at me. Oh, and suddenly I know exactly what I can do for my country. Well, I'm standing there in the Oval Office with the Emancipation Proclamation right behind me, and I look at our Commander-in-Chief in the eye, and I say, thank you for being a friend. Bum, 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 bum. Travel down the road and back again. Something, something. You're a pal and a confidant. Bum, 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 bum. He looks amused, but I keep going. And if you threw a party, invited everyone you knew. And that's when he gives me a look that's like, okay, president's time. But it works. President Obama bobs his head in time to the music. Betty White gets her card. NBC gets their special. I leave the Oval Office that day with my head held high, knowing that the President of the United States was just a tiny bit better at his job because I was in the room. After that, people still ask me, have you met him yet? Have you met Obama yet? And I can finally say, yeah, actually, I have. And then just to myself, I think, not to brag or anything, but technically, I'm thankful he's a friend. And so, I read you two of many, many, many worthy Moth stories. And if you'd like to read some more, there is The Moth Presents Occasional Magic, True Stories About Defying the Impossible. So, hope you have a wonderful Thanksgiving, and I look forward to seeing you again on Wednesday when I think I'm going to visit with Margaret Atwood and her poetry. Until then, have a wonderful weekend, friends.